is actually how we had got these two guys. So once upon a time, they were both wild crocodiles and had to be removed because they started paying attention to us a little too much. So there's now one less apex predator, one less hatching mum out there doing their jobs in our ecosystems. Now it's pretty easy to say croc-wise in crocodile territory. The first thing you're going to do is start seeing these yellow signs when you get to about Gladstone. So if you're on a road trip, start seeing those yellow signs. That means you are now in crocodile habitat and there are crocodiles in those waters. First thing you want to do is book a hotel with a swimming pool. So it's pretty hot up there all year round. If you want to have a nice safe swim, you can have a cocktail, float in the pool and be nice and safe. Because even though these guys are estuarine or saltwater crocodiles, they can thrive in any water condition. These guys are actually thriving right now in brackish, so essentially freshwater habitats right now. So they can adapt to any environment as long as there's some water for them. Now at certain times of the year, these guys do end up in freshwater, even popular swimming hole environments, for a couple of different reasons. One being, mums like to find good spots that are out of floodwaters, out of tidal areas. That's where they're going to have their eggs. They don't want them washing away. And they sometimes end up a little bit more inland than normal and sometimes into those freshwater creeks in search of a good place to make their eggs, lay their eggs. And naturally the males do increase their mobility with floodwaters. When we get lots of rain, they want to follow the females into those areas. They actually have an important role to play in guarding the territory where their eggs are too, so they're both really good parents. Now also at that time of year we get a lot of floodwaters, so I don't know if anyone saw on the news recently, we've had quite a few floods up north. Now some crocodiles, they can swim with those floodwaters and investigate new areas. Others are not so good as swimmers. They might not be able to cope with the currents in the middle, so they will naturally swim to the outside of the floodwaters, the shorelines. As those floodwaters increase in size, those crocodiles then become displaced from their normal habitat. That's when you start to see on the news as a crocodile walking into people's backyards or down the main road. So we don't have this booming population that we're unable to manage. They're simply just getting displaced from their habitats at that time of year. Now sometimes they find a nice new habitat, they jump in, they start thriving, those floodwaters reside, they're now in a popular swimming hole that doesn't look like it's connected to any saltwater habitat. So this is where people get nasty surprises coming into swimming season. So do stay out of any waterway and consider any waterway the potential to house a crocodile up north. Now, when you do get to crocodile habitat, the best thing to do is to stay nice and far back from the water's edge. So when a crocodile is hunting, they do like to ambush on the water's edge. Now, Frisbee, he's showing us where he is. He's essentially in the position he would be in, but he knows that I've got a bucket and he needs to show me where he is if he's going to get any food today. So this is a captive crocodile behaviour. If he was feeling a little bit more wild today, he might pop down under the water surface. And he could sit under there for up to 4 hours without coming up for air. So he can slow his heart rate to 2 to 3 beats per minute, and that means he doesn't need as much oxygen in his system. He can sit down there patiently holding his breath for that long. So pretty impressive. Now he's not just sitting down there doing nothing, he's watching behaviours. So he's watching everything that's going on. He has a set of goggles. So from just below the water surface, he has a nictitating membrane and a third eyelid, and that's clear for him. So he can see everything that's going on the surface of the water. If he pops down a bit lower, he then has special sensors in his mouth and they pick up on vibration. So you'll see me later bang that bucket and they will probably both react to the banging of that bucket. But essentially what they can do is sit under the water surface. If they can't see, they can feel if something comes down to the water's edge. But they can also work out roughly how big it is, rough location, and if it's moving around to different locations. So these guys use all of that information to their advantage. Now, as I said, he is a 500 kilo animal. If he bursts out of the water and misses his food, that's a lot of energy. That's like running a marathon and then not getting a feed at the end of it. So a lot of energy consumed and no food rewarded at the end. But also, they've just alerted everything to their presence. They make quite a commotion when they splash out of the water. They've just scared all the food out of the area for quite some time. So they want to make sure they've got a really good chance of catching their food and that it's worth the energy that they're using to eat that food as well. So they will patiently watch and learn and increase their chances the best they can. Now sometimes Frisbee waits until I pull the food out of the bucket and decides whether it's even worth coming up. So if I have a tiny little fish, he's probably not going to come up for that day if he's not that hungry. So he always makes sure it's worth his while. So pretty smart animals. Now Frisbee also knows me very well. He knows that sometimes I trick him just so everyone gets to see him. So he will go as far as waiting until the food is dangling on his side of the fence before he even comes up. We'll see how we go today. We'll see if he wants to come up and say hello. Now this is potentially one of his last feeds for the year. We are heading into winter period here on the Gold Coast, and given we are outside of their natural habitats, it's a little bit cooler than they're used to. So these guys actually for about 4 or 5 months of the year naturally go off their food, but you might notice when he does come out of the water, he probably doesn't need too much food right now. He's looking very good condition, if some might say a little bit over condition. He actually has some fat storage. So at the base of his neck and tail, he has a nice fat storage. And over winter, he's going to live off that energy, and that'll get him through that winter period. Now, if he was to eat during that cooler weather, he actually would just simply not be able to digest his food. He can get very sick from that. But it looks like he's pretty hungry today. I didn't even have to show him his food. Let's see if we're in sync today. No, not today. That's all right. He'll find it. Hopefully. We'll give him a second, see if he finds that chicken. No, we're not finding that chicken. Now, in his defense, he looks pretty silly right now. That's a pretty small piece of food for Frisbee. He's used to coming bursting out of the water and getting things the size of humans, the size of horses, and I've just given him a tiny bit of chicken and it's fallen below his eyesight. So he will find it in a minute. If not, I'll give him a bit of a hand. But he's come up nice and close, so we've got a really good idea of how he looks. Now that bony armour on his back is how he can sneak up on his prey undetected. So while he's under the water surface, it's roughly shoulder height in that waterway for me. So he's quite a large animal when he's swimming around. The water goes in that bony armour called scoots, flows around. That breaks up the surface tension at the top of the water. So when Frisbee goes down, you can see some bubbles moving around, but you never really know if that's coming from his tail, his feet, where it's coming from. It's never the bitey end. And he never pops up where we actually expect him to. So he's able to move around pretty undetected in there. Now it looks like he's going to need a little bit of help. Now he's also got some really impressive jaws on him. Now he's got about 50 to 60 teeth in his head and a really impressive jaw pressure. You're sitting on your food. There we go. Now his jaw pressure is the second largest of any animal in the world, and that's second to the Nile crocodile. So it comes in at 3,700 psi. Ours is 150 psi, so that gives you a bit of perspective. Now in the peak of summer, Frisbee gets pig heads. It's really cool whenever we can get a pig head and throw it in there. He captures it and crunches it instantly with about the same ease we would crush a grape between our fingers. So if you're ever able to get down here in the summer, you see some pretty cool behaviours from our boy here. So that's how easy he can crush bone. We're doing some burps today, aren't we? So that was a pretty simple food item. It went down really easy. But when he does get that larger food item, he's got a couple of different methods for getting that to a manageable size piece. So he can't chew his food like we do. Our jaws are designed to chew. His jaw is designed to snap shut and hold on to his food. So he's got a gripping tool there, but the rest is up to him. So if he bursts out of the water, he grabs a limb of an animal, he'll then need to roll. Now that's going to do two things. It's going to throw the animal off its feet, make it easier to get it in the water. That's where he does his best work. He can then continue to roll. That's going to use his body weight to tear off a chunk of food. So if he's got a leg, that's going to tear and dejoint that leg really easy, especially with 500 kilos behind it. Now Frisbee also does a really cool move when he gets a large prey item. He takes it in the water, he lifts his head up and he slams it down with all his force. Bits of food go flying, sometimes people get hit with it, it's really fun. I wouldn't want to be the one in his jaws though, that would be a terrible way to go. So you do need to be very safe in crocodile territory. And it's really simple. If you're walking by the water's edge and you see a crocodile and you're right on the water's edge, it's too late for you. So you want to be at least 5 to 6 metres distance from the water's edge. That's going to give you enough time to react and enough distance to move out of the way as the crocodile bursts out of the water. So looking at the size of him, he could get up to 6 metres. He can burst a third of his body out in one go. So you need quite a bit of distance from the water's edge. If you're doing a spot of fishing or you're having a picnic and you want to relax a little bit, just take a croc blocker. Simple. Just an esky, pop that between you and the water's edge. That's your barrier, that's your decoy. The important part is don't put your beer in the esky, because if a crocodile does burst out of the water, you're going to lose that esky, but you get to keep your legs that day. So just don't put anything good in there. So always putting a barrier between you and the water's edge, especially if you're launching a boat, using a boat trailer, always making sure that's between you and the water. So that you've got enough time to react. Now, if you are launching a boat in crocodile territory, do not leave your partner holding the boat when you pass the car. They may not be there when you get back. So everyone make sure you're leaving the water together and returning to that boat together and staying nice and safe. If you are planning a trip up to crocodile territory as well, you can download the Q Wildlife app. This is how our rangers actually manage our crocodile population. So when people do see crocodiles or make sightings, they can record them through this app, and we can go and investigate any potential dangerous crocodiles and make sure that it's safe for the public. So always reporting anything you see up there will help us to be able to do our job, but it also helps keep you safe as well. So you can actually have a look at the areas that you're planning on visiting, check if there's been any recent sightings and if there's been any naughty crocodiles in the area, so to speak, and keep yourselves nice and well informed. So thank you for coming down to meet our crocodiles. I am going to give Ms. Donna a little bit of a feed as well, and then I'll put my microphone off. If anyone has any questions, feel free to come and ask me. Otherwise, we'll see you at our next show, which is the 1 o'clock Fleay and Fly. Thank you so much.